All right, so I'm going to now introduce Krista Brinkman. She is our presenter tonight. And Krista, would you, before you get going, or I don't know if it's in your plans, but if you could say a little bit about what you do and who you are, that'd be great so that we can learn a little bit about you.
Well, first of all, thank you guys so much for offering to connect with me on this. This is a project that I'm very passionate about. My name is Krista Brinkman, and I live in Colorado, and I have 4 children. And prior to having children, I ended up graduating from college when I was 20 with a BA in psychology and thought, oh, that was fast. I have a lot of my life left to live. What do I want to get my master's in? And I really wanted to go into law, and I happened upon a job working in a program with students who had autism in Lawrence, Kansas, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And I could not tell you how it just intrigued my heart and my mind, and I knew that that was something that I was going to be very passionate about. And so I waited a couple of years just to see if anything else kind of caught my attention in the process, and my heart kept going back to special education. And so I got my master's degree in special education, and I went almost all, I'd say partway through early childhood special education, and then switched to moderate needs special education so that I could work with a wider audience of ages. And then I got my all but one class endorsement in severe affective, and I worked in a program with kids who had severe needs when I started teaching, and I loved it. And then I had my first child and decided I would take a break and stay home, and then we had our second child, and he was born with a syndrome called Golden Haar syndrome. And for anyone on the call who is not familiar with that, Golden Haar syndrome, which is now referred to as OAV a lot of times, it's a spectrum syndrome where it can present with many different features, and he presents with hemifacial microsomia. So he has an underdeveloped jaw, and he had no ear, just a little kind of little nubbins up and above, and then no ear canal, and that's the atresia part of it. And I just could not have loved him more, and I was very grateful for my expertise from special education as it impacted like an IFSP or knowing about different services to a greater or lesser extent, but my experience in working with students who were deaf and hard of hearing was not at all an opportunity that I was given in my studies and in my teaching. And so I did a lot of learning, and I did a lot of research, and I had a lot of conversations, and I met with a lot of different professionals, and I really, again, fell in love with all things that pertain to my son and everything pertaining to the world of people who are deaf and hard of hearing, and everything about it just clicked with me and identified with every fiber of my being. And so I was given an opportunity to work for Colorado Hands and Voices, and I am the unilateral hearing loss guide by your side for the state of Colorado. And I, since having my second, had a third, and then I had a fourth. So I have 4 kids, and my husband works out of town every week. And so as you can imagine, it's kind of a busy, bustling household. And that's kind of what has led me to Hands and Voices. And with that, it takes me to the Our Children Project, which is a project that came to Hands and Voices from a professor, Dr. Harold Johnson from Michigan State University. And it was something that he was really passionate about, and as he was beginning to exit his career but wanting to continue on but find a way to do that in his retirement, and he decided to create this program called Understanding, Observing, and Responding to Child Abuse and Neglect. And so it is something that I could not tell you how. I think it came up one time in a call with guides that, hey, we have this opportunity, is anybody interested? And I made the first call and participated in the next one, and here we are almost 8 years later, maybe even 8 years later, and the project has just come to great fruition and is such a wonderful asset and resource for people who not just work with students and children who are deaf and hard of hearing, but also I think protecting any child. I think it's just an amazing project. And so so that is what brought me here. And I have a passion for literacy, and so that is how this literacy project began. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Our Children project because it's not just something that is a monthly call. What it has become is it is a body of research and a gathering of professionals who work together, and we've done a lot of research and educating one another and partnering with other agencies such as Kid Power to help prevent and at the very least reduce the frequency, duration, and the impact of abuse and neglect as experienced by children with disabilities. This is no small project. The mere topic of child abuse and neglect can not be the best groundbreaking conversation with someone to kind of have an icebreaker of, hey, so let's talk about abuse and neglect. And so it is something that when you find having a conversation in an appropriate way with somebody about this, you will learn how many people are impacted by abuse and neglect, either themselves, somebody they know, or their own children. And there's such power in knowing that you get to have an opportunity to work with different professionals and parents and teachers who can collaborate and create a system to not only be able to share these stories, but with that comes education and comes knowledge and comes power, and it becomes less and less difficult to have that conversation with people. And it is amazing knowing that you have had a conversation with one person, maybe two, and if you're lucky, even more, who have walked away from that conversation with resources that help them to protect children, a child, multiple children. And it's a very unique and wonderful opportunity that I feel very blessed to be able to have. So with Our Children is speaking to children with disabilities, but also children who are deaf and hard of hearing. And children with disabilities are at a significantly greater risk for child abuse and neglect. And that is something that at first, when we initially started working on this project, it was we'd find, a statistic, another kind of different statistic, and finally we started finding a lot of statistics that were out there to show that children with disabilities will experience maltreatment, whether it's physical, emotional, sexual, bullying, neglect. You will find that they will come in at a rate that is 3 to 4 times greater than experienced by their non-disabled peers. And this was a study that came from Sullivan and Knudsen in 2000, and then this rate indicates that at least 25% of children with disabilities will experience one or more form of maltreatment between birth to age 18. And that's a very significant statistic, and that statistic came out from Jones, Bellis, Wood, Hughes, McCoy, Eckley, and Offier in 2012. 25% is a staggering statistic. It is gut-wrenching to think that a quarter of the population of children who have disabilities are impacted by abuse and neglect. And so this is what drives the need to, our is O, observe, U, understand, and R, respond to child abuse and neglect. And so it's very important when you are working with children and professionals and parents to be able to have that conversation and be able to impact them and have that difficult conversation that many people do not want to have. So the next slide that I'm going to pull up is about silence is not an option. So the Our Children project has created many different resources. A lot of it started out as data or bright spots that we pulled in. And with the bright spots, we could amass more information, more data, and we are able to connect. And with that, we created different documents. And with the different documents, we have found that there was a strong need for the silence is not an option. So it's a parent-driven plan to keep our children safe, both at home and at school. One of the problems that we really came up with was, hey, I can help my child at home more or less. However, the issue I'm coming up with is how do I protect my child at school? And so with that, we thought, okay, well, how do we work with an IEP team to create an IEP with goals that would be centered around helping students who need to be protected? And so we ended up creating this document, and this document is incredible in my own personal opinion. I really think it's a very powerful document. And I apologize, I have steered away from my ability to navigate in the web, so I'm going to speak to the document while I kind of tinker around with this for a little bit. And the silence is not an option document is speaking to that no child should experience maltreatment, and how do we end up protecting them. So what we found is that those children, particularly who have communication challenges, experience maltreatment at a rate that is 3 to 4 times greater than experienced by their non-disabled peers, which we know, but bullying alone is experienced by as many as 1 in 7, with a reported 63% or higher rate among students who have any label per se. The maltreatment that they experience significantly impedes children's ability to interact, to learn, communicate, or achieve at a level consistent with their potential. So as we worked through this document, we came up with different goals, and we tried to work with different schools, and we found certain goals did not work with them. Certain goals did. The IFSP ended up being something that aligned pretty well with it. So we identified different things to request, such as knowledge of protective factors and being able to identify concrete solutions that will keep their child safe. And then we also went through other ways to create goals around that. So I am going to speak to this project of mine for a moment, and then I so apologize. I don't know how I got clicked away from that. We also created a safety checklist. And the safety checklist is something we ended up building in that helped with doing the silence is not an option. And the safety checklist is something that can be used when you're trying to create different goals in the IFSP or the IEP in working with children. And it outlines, this is a 23-page document of various resources, checklists that you can go over with the team as well. You have targeted outcomes and many wonderful things like that. But as we were doing it, we felt, wouldn't it be more powerful to have the ability to use literacy in this? And so in the safety document, there are many different resources for a variety of different modalities, different books. There's also videos, and there's articles to be able to utilize working with children to help create to help with the communication barrier between the children, their parents, a child, and a teacher, a counselor, any person by helping to, first of all, we looked at different books that would work with depicting positive family relationships, because we felt like it was very important to be able to identify what helps to make a child safe. And so that was one of the things that we started putting in there and kind of built from there. And so it goes into different resources to identify different language around it, identifying different body parts and things to that effect. And so we found that, I think I found it. Yay. Okay, so there's the silence is not an option. I'm on a different computer than I usually use. I apologize. Thank you for your patience. This is the link. So on this PowerPoint, if you want to click on and access the document for silence is not an option, this is the document that you will go to, and it will pull up silence is not an option, and then this is the safety checklist. And they're both very wonderful resources that can be used. So at this point, I did want to just kind of put a little plug. If anyone's thinking, I'm really curious, what is this Our Children project? I'd like to know a little bit more about it. I'm interested, but I'm not quite sure. If you're ever wanting to be a part of the Our project participants are asked to share information. As I mentioned, we share different experiences, we share different resources, we share different literature that we find, and then also we identify bright spots. And so we had a goal to identify 100. We have not hit our 100. So if you have anybody that you know, or you yourself or somebody that you feel would be beneficial to add to our bright spot list, a bright spot is a parent, it is a volunteer, it is a professional, it is an educator, it is anybody who has something that they can offer that would be helpful towards understanding, observing, and responding to child abuse and neglect. And that does, as I mentioned earlier, connect to bullying. And then from there, the easiest way that I find for people to get more information about it is just to participate in a monthly call. And our monthly calls are held on the second Tuesday of the month, and they're typically from September to May. We realize that a lot of people travel in the summer, and it's a little bit difficult to try to connect with people all at the same time over the summer. So if it's something that you're interested in, please do let me know. I would love to get you that information. And then from those bright spots, again, the dialogue, the conversation, and in these calls, we get passionate about different things. So bullying was something that was very fascinating to me, because I felt that potentially there would be a connection between students and children who are abused. Would they be more likely to be bullied as well? So I wanted to understand the connection, and I really felt very strongly about this, and as did other people that I worked with. And in the process of having this conversation, we all felt like, yeah, there's a solid, strong connection with this. And from that, it became well, how can we help? How can we make a difference? How can we impact change? And so we had the bright idea of literacy, books, different modalities to be able to connect with different people on this. And this was something that ended up evolving to one person saying, hey, well, what if we started a sheet or a document or something that talks about books? What if we start this collection? And then from there, it just kind of evolved over the process of, well, who would be interested in this? Who would want to do this? And so many people had different resources to contribute to it, that we realized that this is not something that people are just interested in, but they're also passionate about. And there are a lot of different resources and people who are wanting to bring those resources forward to be able to help with that. And so I, in all of my spare time, thought, yeah, I'll do it. I'm really passionate about this. I'll do it. So I created what is the template, I will call, for words can hurt, but words can help. And so we have always heard the old adage of sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And I did some research on how this came to be, and it used to be an adage that people would use to show strength in their words, not being strong enough to actually harm someone, but the only physical harm could actually harm someone. And obviously we have learned, and I believe the first time that that was referenced was in the 1800s, we have learned that since then, obviously, words absolutely can hurt, and they can be very, very damaging. So whether the words that someone says are spoken, or now with our technology and the ability to use social media or texting or emailing, they are words. And those words are so powerful that they are honestly one of the most common modalities that are used to bully. Very rarely do you have frequent incidences of the same person physically harming someone and not knowing about it. But very frequently, you will have students who are bullied, whether it's in person, it's on a text message, it's sent through social media, and maybe email, and they don't speak up about it. They don't connect with other people about it. They don't talk about it. And so, according to an article from A.G. Bell that I read, 30% of kids ages 6 to 10 will experience some form of bullying. And with that comes the deduction of it's believed that children with disabilities are twice as likely as their peers to be bullied, such as the connection that we've seen with people who have disabilities are more likely to be abused. And so if words can be expressed verbally or written to bully, and conversely, they should be able to be used to then be proactive. And those words can also be used to make people aware. And by using something like books or using articles or something, sometimes it is a YouTube video, by defining and allowing the language to develop around these topics, we can empower, educate, and communicate more to help take a more proactive stance around this topic. And so with the sad statistics around how words can hurt, we have learned that from suicide.org that suicide is now the third leading cause of death for kids who are aged 15 to 24 years old. Again, like abuse, if you have a conversation with people, you'll realize how closely connected so very many people you never knew are to suicide within their life. And so they're now finding that suicide is the third leading cause of death of children ages 15 to 24 years old. And though there's no specific statistic at this point to show the percentage of these which are results of bullying, there is a Yale study that states that kids who are bullied are 2 to 9 times more likely to consider suicide than non-bullied peers. And I really wanted to make sure to find as much data as I could about that because I didn't want to make an erroneous stretch. But it seems to me in media, when we do hear about suicides, whether it's more prevalent now than it was before with bullying or it's just more covered now than it was before, there does seem to be a strong connection oftentimes with the cases that we will hear about on the news about students who are children who are bullied who then end up committing suicide. And that is something that I personally find to be very unacceptable, and I feel that it creates a strong call to action for all of our youth to help them and to connect with them and to give them the words. And so that is where, when I was trying to come up with a name for this fledgling project, and by the way, I reserve the right to change the name of the project or any of the ideas there within because it is an ongoing and evolving project. It is in its fledgling stage. So thank you for obliging me and listening to me as I speak about my beautiful little newborn that is supported by a community of so many other parents within the Our Children project that just makes it such a special thing. So words can help, and the Our Children team has continued to work together to identify several different resources to build self-esteem, confidence, and self-security for children. And that is what I had mentioned, how, you know, within the safety checklist and the silence is not an option, it started the ball rolling of all these different people saying, there's this book, there's that book, what about this article? Well, did you see this YouTube video? So clearly that pooled together with all of those different resources created it was the catalyst to developing and then again, I reserve the right to change this, but the Literacy Liaison Power List. And the Literacy Liaison Power List was a difficult thing to come up with, and semantically, basically what it came down to for me was the literacy piece of it is obviously literacy, liaison, something bringing things together and forming that relationship. But I wanted the word power there because to the Our Children Project, the most important thing about the literacy is the power that it gives adults to be able to connect with children, children to be able to connect with adults, to be able to have the words, to be able to identify things, and to be able to respond in these situations. And so I wanted to put the word power there. And again, I know it doesn't flow and roll off the tongue as well, so I don't know if it will stick around, but as for now, that in its fledgling stage is what it's called. Kind of like my second son, when I was fourth actually, was called LP for Little Paul, knowing we'd never call him Paul, his first name, we'd call him by his middle name, and here he is at 5, and we do not ever call him the middle name that which we swore we would call him, but we always call him LP, so you just never know. So our team, as I mentioned, recognized the strength presented in various modalities, books, articles, videos, to help educate and provide context and words for dialogues, and provide tools to bring awareness to abuse, neglect, and bullying. And with that, hopefully, we will be able to do some incredible things. And so I am going to ask you all to just mentally jot something down for me, and I want you to just pencil this in. I am going to ask you for something at the end of this presentation. So if you're keeping a to-do list, you're trying to check it off, I don't know, I love to check things off at the end of my day, like I got that done, I got that done, I got that done. This is a super easy one to check off. Just put, Cresta Brinkman is going to ask me a question and I'm going to think about it. And that's going to be on your to-do list, and you will be able to check that off by the time this meeting is over tonight. So know that the ask is coming up. So we started to collect some data and information and started to chunk it down. And as of right now, I feel like we would like to see the project have a hot sheet of sorts, one side, maybe two-sided, that will have kind of the top most effective and beneficial at the time books, articles, videos. And so with this, the first one that we started to create was the one for younger children. And Kate Winslet narrated an anti-bullying animated short film, Disney Chains. And so this is a very interesting story of a celebrity who was bullied and who was made fun of because of her body. And so she had a lot of issues with her body image, and so she worked to develop her self-confidence and feeling good about herself. And then she had the opportunity to work with somebody who created this short film about bullying, and she was able to give a voice to the character. And if you have the opportunity, I highly encourage you to check this out. It is absolutely wonderful. Another book is Alex and the Scary Things, and this is available on Amazon, and it's about Alex who experiences scary things. And it helps, it's obviously not the most heartwarming of books, but it is one of those books that you would have the opportunity to have the conversation with your child and learn a lot about, as most children's literature truly does, provide such an opportunity and a platform for different conversations and dialogue and discussions about their day, how they're feeling, something that might have happened. My goodness, I tell you with my kids, I typically try to read 3 books at nap time, 3 books at bedtime. And then as they get older, they start to read by themselves. But when they were little, and even now for the ones who are old enough to read on their own, the books that they read absolutely generate conversations about things that may have even happened years ago, but they can come up as a result of reading this book, and it's interesting to be able to have that discussion. There's also the Awareness and Understanding of Autism, and it's about Sesame Street introducing a character who has autism, and her name is Julia. And so it is very beautiful to see our world come together and create short films and characters around the whole population of kids who are in the world today, and not just one particular demographic. And then another thing that's very popular is and I can't remember the name of it. It just escaped me. I call them comics. But there's another name for it. I'm sorry. It just, aphasia is hitting me. However, comics, there are different comics that we came up with. And so on this, we have the Stop the Bullying comic anthology. And then it was a comic challenge. And then there's a Marvel Entertainment Stomp Out Bullying and Team Up, and then Comics to the Rescue and Cartoon Network Stop Bullying and Speak Up, which is an incredible campaign. They do such a great job of doing commercials and really launching things on their website and different things to be able to connect with students, children, and encourage them to not only stand up for themselves, but speak out for other people as well. And so it's Kids Fight Bullying through comic strips. And so the next slide is a book opportunity for parents and professionals. So there's the bully, the bullied, and the bystander, queen bees and wannabes, and masterminds and wingmen. I am not all the way through all of these. This is an ongoing thing. Aforementioned 4 children kind of puts a damper on the reading, and sometimes if I do have an opportunity to read, I can mow through a Harlan Coben novel like there's nobody's business. But that is something that I really found that might be interesting, as did all of the people on the conversations that we've had, that it would be great for parents and professionals to be able to have a book for them about it as well. So there are books on positive family relationships, and these next couple of slides, I'm not going to read all of them to you because there are an awful lot. These come from that document that I mentioned, but there are all of these different books about body awareness, the power of no, positive family relationships. There are videos and DVDs that are available. Again, more on body parts and language, videos about body parts and language. Good touch and bad touch and what's the difference is one that I really found to be very helpful, absolutely helpful in working with students who are on the pervasive developmental disorder spectrum. And then Kid Power has copious amounts of videos and whatnot on keeping your child safe, putting safety first, keeping your radar on. Anytime anything ever happens, particularly things that happen that impact our youth, and I'm not sure of what to say to my children, I will always go to Kid Power to be able to see what they have to offer. They're just a tremendous resource, I think, to all people. Another one on health and wellness is right here, and it's on training for assertiveness, relationship building, and sexual awareness. And excuse me one second. It helps with tools to be able to identify the strengths and needs of the individual, and then activities that can be catered to address their specific needs. And so I am going to open this part up for questions, and I look forward to connecting with you guys. And thank you so much again for having me be a part of this evening with you. Don't all jump at once.
Hi, Krista. This is Kristen.
Hi, Kristen.
I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about, so you're doing this literacy project that's obviously a part of our project, and I just wondered, are you solely doing this, or do you have a group of parents, or, you know, like I know that you had maybe mentioned to me that you were looking for some other people to help you out and come up with different resources. Is that kind of the case, or do you have a team? If you could just talk a little bit about that.
Well, that is a wonderful question. Thank you very much. This is Cresta. I'll just skip to the next slide, and that is your homework of your to-do list. That is the ask. So with this project, everybody within our children does so many different things. We have an amazing quilt project, and with this quilt project, people make different quilting squares that they put together, and then we have the quilts to have at conferences, and it draws people to the Our Children table, but it also opens up the dialogue for things. So there are various people within the Our team that are engaged in different projects, and pick me is what I did. And I am looking for more people to get involved in this project. It is it's a bit daunting to think of one person taking it on, but more importantly, I'm not taking it on by myself. I will always have the support of everybody on the Our team, and they're incredible, but each person kind of has their niche, and this is my niche right now. It's something I really firmly want to see come to fruition, but, excuse me, I also don't want to err on the side of assuming that I found a book to be helpful, therefore it's going to be helpful for everyone. And so my ask is, I would really love to see if there is anybody who would be interested in being a part of this project with me and having conversations with me, emailing. It wouldn't be terribly time-consuming. It would be something to where if you have a book and you have read it and you found it to be helpful, or you've read an article or even a video that you felt to be very helpful, something as simple as shooting that over my way and saying, hey, I don't have time to help you, but this is really helpful. I really like this. Or my daughter's school used this, or my son's therapist used this, and I think you should take a look at it. It's also something more of, I would really love to see if I could have kind of a book study of sorts online. I really would love to have a group of parents, and I don't exactly know the best way to say that it would be played out, because obviously it would be contingent on the people who signed up to do this. Maybe it would be a call like this. Maybe it would be a Skype. Maybe it would be email back and forth. I'm not quite sure, whatever would work best for the group, but I would love to have a group of parents saying, okay, this month we're going to read this book. And then we're going to get back together and we're going to talk about it. What were its strengths? What were its weaknesses? What are something we really felt like it was great, but it lacked this, and can we find this? And so that's something that I would really like to appeal to all of you, and see if there's anybody that, if you yourself are not interested, or if you know of somebody who might be interested in doing this. So thank you for asking the question. Are there any other questions? Okay, well, my final slide that I have is the, if nothing else, this would be the most powerful thing that I can ask of you, is to thank you for your time, but then also remember that the National Child Abuse Hotline is 1-800-4-A-CHILD. It is a tremendous resource. They are not a reporting agency. They are a great place to call when you don't know if you should report something, or you're not quite sure about a situation, but something about it just doesn't set well with you and you really have some questions. All the calls are confidential. They are open 24/7. They also will help you to even process your role in it. But obviously, certain positions, professionals, teachers, they're mandated to report if they suspect. It's not their job to ascertain whether or not the abuse has occurred or has not occurred. It's their job to report it. And then Child Protective Services will do the rest of it. But if you're unsure, or if just something doesn't set with you, please always remember 1-800-4-A-CHILD. And that's all I have. Thank you guys again. I hope you have a great week. Oh, and happy 4th of July. Hello?
Hi, Krista. This is Kristen. Carrie might be tending to. She has a little one, so she might be tending to the little one at this point.
No worries. That's absolutely understandable. I'm usually on the mute end of the calls, not the speak end of the calls because of my kids, so I totally understand that.
Yeah, she's got 4 kiddos, too, so she's got her hands full just like you do. But I just want to thank you for sharing this information. I think it's very powerful information that we all have to think about and, know how to act and respond if something were to come our way. So yes, thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who called in this evening. And again, if you are interested in helping out with this project, make sure you reach out to Carrie or myself, and we can get you in touch with Cresta, and we have her contact information, and we can help her out with her amazing project. So thanks again, Cresta, and everyone have a great evening.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Carrie.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.